With only 1 day left before the NFL trade deadline hits, what should the Seattle Seahawks do over the next 28 hours to make their team better or their future better? What's going on, everybody? Good morning, except it is the worst morning. It is the worst kind of morning imaginable. Seahawks lose. Kind of feels like the season's basically over. We're just playing the string out. But I'm not going anywhere, right? I'm making these videos. I'm doing my thing. I'm covering the team to the best of my ability. I'm trying to talk this stuff through. I'm trying to figure this stuff out. I can't leave just because things have gone super sour. And believe me, they have. And I'm not too happy about it, but I'm sticking it out. And we're going to find out what happens these last 8 games. I hope the team is able to rally something together and get some wins here, and maybe even fight their way back into some kind of a competitive spot, but it's hard to imagine. But we got a bye week coming up, so we've got some time to think about stuff. Unfortunately, we don't really have time to think about what the Seahawks could do at the trade deadline. And I've already made a couple videos this year talking about guys the Seahawks could trade for. Well, I don't think we need to have that conversation right now. First of all, the Seahawks have already traded for 2 players, Roy Robertson Harris and Ernest Jones. So I don't think you're going to trade for a third one, and you're certainly not going to do it after you lose 5 games out of 6 and just lose 2 in a row and go to 0-2 in your division. Like you can't trade for players at this point. Like no one player is going to single-handedly dig you out of this unless it's like some primo center or left guard. And the odds of those guys being available in a trade is very, very small. So I don't think you can trade for anybody. So we have to have the conversation the other way. Should the Seattle Seahawks maybe look to get some stuff off the team over the next 28 hours? So this is the approach that would make a little more sense because we're closer to the outhouse than the penthouse. We can either try to pull ourselves a little bit closer to the penthouse, but probably not get that close, or you can pull yourself a little closer to the outhouse and at least be in position to have flexibility in the offseason, I guess. And again, I'm not a tanker. I don't support tanking, especially not in this context. But I also understand that at a certain point you don't have much to play for. And the assets that you get for some of these good players might be worth more than the player if the team isn't going to win anyway. So, with that being said, I'm going to have to ask, who are we trading? Who are we trading off this team that is getting us assets that mean something and setting this team up to be better next year or the year after than they were before with said player on the team? Right? Like, you're not trading a quarterback at this point in the season, unless it's a backup quarterback, maybe. Maybe you could package Sam Howell and a pick for a backup quarterback that you like more, like somebody like an Anthony Richardson or a Will Levis or a Bryce Young, but that's probably not going to happen, right? I don't think that's realistic. And it's too late in the season for a quarterback to be expected to learn a new offense, so I don't think you're trading Geno Smith. Ken Walker would probably be the first interesting one, right? And I think there's an argument to be made here that Ken Walker is great, but we're probably not going to extend him. So he's got the rest of this year and this year on the Seahawks, and that's probably it. Then you lose him for nothing. And in the meantime, you may as well not have Ken Walker because your offensive line is so bad, you still can't run the ball with him. He should be a top 3 running back in this league. He should be one of the league leaders in rushing yards, but he isn't because this team quite simply cannot run the ball with this line. So what's he doing for you that's helping you? Not a lot. Like, some of these games, many of these games, you may as well have DJ Dallas back there. He would not be less productive because Walker can't be any less productive than he is because of this line. So Walker, that's going to be the first one that I really kind of circle around, not because I necessarily want to do it, but because I can understand looking at it and going, okay, he might want an extension after this season. If he doesn't, we're going to play him out on the 4th year, and then we probably lose him for nothing, or, maybe a compensatory pick, right? Which, okay, there's a little bit there, but what if you could get a lot more than that compensatory pick right now? Like, remember a couple years ago when the Niners, they were in a position of desperation, so they traded a second, a third, a fourth, and I think a fifth for Christian McCaffrey. Maybe you could get something close to that. Maybe you could get a second and a third for Ken Walker. Now, they're not going to be very good picks because it's probably going to be from some team like the Chiefs or the Ravens, or, well, not the Ravens, but the point is a good team that actually has a chance to win the Super Bowl. But is that worth more than getting a compensatory 3rd-round pick in, what, 2.5 years? Maybe. I'm open to it. If the return's good enough, I can see that one. Zach Charbonnet, there's no way he's got trade value, and it's certainly nowhere close to the pick we used on him at this point, so I don't see the point. Kenny McIntosh, no value. DK Metcalf is one that people are going to be at least discussing, I guess. I've said before that I'm very, very out on the idea of trading DK Metcalf. I think it's a atrocious idea. I've seen this offense without him. Everything's different. Everything's much more frustrating. I want DK Metcalf on this team for the next 6 years minimum. And I want him to retire a Seahawk ultimately. That's what I'm looking for here. If a team came along and offered up like 2 first-round picks, yeah, of course I have to jump on that, right? But you're not going to get anywhere near that for DK Metcalf. You're going to get maybe a 2nd-round pick because that team that trades for him goes, well, now I got to pay him. I'm not giving you that much. So I don't see any way you could make a good DK Metcalf trade work right now, especially if that team knows they're only renting him for half a year and then they got to pay him. And then he'll have that team over a barrel because they traded for him the same way Leonard Williams kind of had us over a barrel. So unless it's a ridiculous offer, unless the Chiefs come in and they're like, look, we want a 3-peat, we need a receiver, we'll give you like 2 firsts and a third or something like that. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I know that some people are going to talk about that one, and I understand why in theory it makes sense. But there are things that you can build around in this league long term, and I think Metcalf is one of those things. Bobo, no value. Cody White, no value. JSN, I don't think you're moving off of that now. I mean, he's still 22 years old. And I'm a little bit not sure what to make of JSN at this point. Admittedly, I'm not enamored with him the way some people are, but he had a very good game yesterday, and you don't trade 22-year-olds in this league very often. It's weird when it happens. Lockett, I don't think he has real value. Maybe you give him a chance to go win a Super Bowl somewhere, I guess. But I'd rather have there's something to be said for having a guy who is just your guy. And I want Tyler Lockett to be my guy. And I'd rather have that than some 5th-round pick, which is really all I think you'd get for Lockett now because it's halfway through the season. And, he's having a decent enough year, but he's not tearing it up. Drake Young, no value. Tight end, Noah Fant, no way anybody's trading for that contract. That's a guy you cut in the offseason. Barner, no, he's actually doing some pretty good stuff and doesn't really have value anyway. No value, no value. So none of the tight ends. Charles Cross, I think that's a guy you want to build around long term. Remember, he's only 23. You don't get your grown man muscles until you turn 24 or 25 typically, so he's probably still got a little bit ways to go up. And Cross is still playing very well for us. I got on him a little bit yesterday because he allowed a sack, but he's a very good player, and he's progressing the way I think people expected. Stone Forsythe, certainly no value there. Laken Tomlinson, no value. Lomia, no value. Connor Williams, I mean, maybe he has a little bit of value because some team will look at his salary, I guess, and they'll see how little they have to pay him, but what's the point? You're going to get like a 6th-round pick in 3 years or something. Jalen Sundell, no. Oluwatimi, no. Anthony Bradford, not after yesterday especially, but no. Christian Haynes, no. George Fant, no value. Gerald, we definitely don't want to give up a guy like that right now. That's a guy we might be able to develop. He's making no money and he's young. Abe Lucas, no value. I mean, that's the whole offense, right? I'm trying to be thorough here. I'm trying to look at every player as much as I can, but I think you can see that there isn't necessarily a ton that can be moved that makes sense. I mean, you can move Charles Cross, but at that point, you're basically just a farm team for other franchises, right? Like, I don't want to give up DK Metcalf because I think he's really, really valuable to this team and can be one of the parts of the thing that allows this team to get back on the horse quickly. But at least DK Metcalf's like middle-aged by NFL standards now, kind of. Like Cross is just getting into the part of his career where he's a really good player, and you want to give him up right as he's about to maybe become an elite left tackle. No. All right, so that's the offense. Let's go over to the defense here real quick. Again, we're just going to try to be as thorough as possible, so we're going to go through everybody. Jaron Reed's actually maybe a little interesting. I don't think you would get much more than like a 5th-round pick for him. But if you're thinking, hey, we want to give more snaps to Byron Murphy, and we want to kick the tires on Mike Morris a little bit more, maybe Roy Robertson Harris gets more snaps, and you know that Reed's gone in the offseason because he's a free agent, that's not bad. I think we play him a little too much to pull this off. I think we lean on him a little too much. I don't think McDonald wants to have that many defensive line snaps pulled away from him. But it's actually not a bad idea to consider it, because if you don't think you're going anywhere and Reed can still go help a good team, maybe you can get a little bit of value there. Not a lot, but I think he's still a pretty decent player. Byron Murphy, obviously not. Miles Adams, no value. Jonathan Hankins, no value. Cam Young, no value, and he's hurt. Leonard Williams, nobody's going to trade for that contract, and we can't really trade him anyway because of the contract. Roy Robertson Harris, of course not. Mike Morris, no value. Derek Hall, again, that's a thing where, yeah, there's value. You could probably trade Derek Hall and get some pretty good picks back because he has looked a lot better so far this year. He is playing good football. But at the same time, Derek Hall, he's just coming into his prime. Do you really want to start trading away players just as they start to get good when they still have a year left on their rookie deal after this year anyway, guaranteed? Maybe 2 years after this year? No, I don't think you're doing that. Draymond Jones, no value. Not on that contract especially. Nwosu would actually be an interesting trade candidate if he wasn't hurt. I would definitely be thinking about that. But because Nwosu is hurt, I'm pretty sure you can't trade him. And even if you can, what are you going to get for an injured player who hasn't done really anything in over a calendar year? Dodson, I'm indifferent to Dodson. I don't think Dodson's good. So if you could get something for him, even if it's like a 5th-round pick or 6th-round pick, go for it. But at the same time, I understand that we don't have a lot of depth on the inside linebacker spot, and we might want to keep him just so we know we have somebody who can kind of play. We don't want it to just be Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, and then literally nothing behind those guys in case somebody gets hurt. Sorry about my cough, by the way. Drake Thomas, no value. Josh Ross, no value. Ernest Jones the fourth, you just traded for him, and he's honestly playing pretty well right now, so I don't think you're doing anything there. Boye Mafe, kind of interesting if you plan on not extending him next offseason. If you don't want to pay Mafe in the offseason, then maybe you trade him now. You could probably get some pretty good returns on that, right? He's a good young edge rusher. Maybe you could get your 2nd-round pick back and more for him. Maybe. But I would imagine that you're planning on paying him, and you also have the 4th year of his rookie deal still hanging on there. So I don't feel the need to get these guys out of here. Like I don't feel the need to push these guys out the door in the positions that they're currently in, because we do have that leverage and we do have a way to allow us to get value out of them next year. But if for some reason you're not going to extend him, it might be a decent idea to try to find a playoff team that desperately needs a pass rusher. Gibson, no value. Onujiogu, of course, no value. Gets us to the secondary. And this first guy right here, People get their feelings hurt when I talk about it, but I do wonder what the long-term plan is here. Now, I don't know if Rick Woolen even has trade value right now after the last 2 games he's played where he's just looked pretty bad. And I say that despite the fact he got an interception, which, I mean, when Rick Woolen's pulling it, when you pull in an interception as a corner and you still had a crap day, that's rough. So I don't know if he even has value. I'm not giving away Woolen for like a 4th round pick. But if I'm wrong and Woolen has actual value, like you could get maybe a 2nd round pick back for Woolen from some team desperate for a cover corner that feels like they're a cover corner away from the Super Bowl, I think you got to start thinking about it because you might be selling high based on his early season performances. And he's a guy who is almost definitely going to try to hold out in the offseason just based on the strength of the fact that he's made the Pro Bowl as a rookie, right? He almost led the league in interceptions as a rookie. That's a guy with some real credentials he can hang his hat on if he's like, hey, pay me now or I'm not playing. So if you're not planning on extending him, I get it. But if you think Rick Woolen is part of the long term here, and you think these things that have become a problem in his game can be addressed appropriately, then keep him. Pritchett, no value. D. Williams, no value. Kobe Bryant, I can't imagine there's value there. He is playing good, but there's no value. Wallace, no value. Jenkins, he's hurt. Love, just gave him a contract. Jarek Reed, no. Trey Brown, he is a free agent at the end of the year. You're probably getting very little, if not nothing, for him. And Josh Joby has been playing a pretty decent amount lately. Maybe you're kind of not enamored with Trey Brown anymore. If so, yeah, trade him. Go get a 6th round pick. If that's all you can get, okay. Go get that 6th round pick if it's out there. I think that one's a pretty good one. Joby, on the other hand, a little bit younger, could be around a little bit longer, going to be a little bit cheaper. No need to do anything there. Witherspoon, of course, you're not trading him. He's part of the future foundation. And Artie Burns is hurt, so you can't trade him. And you're not trading any of your special teams players. I don't think Chenault has value. Maybe Dixon has value, but you're not going to trade him because he does his job. And you're not trading Myers either. Like, why? Why would you do that? It would just be to click buttons on the trade machine, I guess. Okay. That's how I see it right now. There are some candidates here, some legitimately good candidates, but I think there's enough young talent on this team that is still looking fairly good to where you can look at this and go, it's going to take us a little bit of time to get to where we want to go. It doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't have to be like a 5-year buildup, right? All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think.